All right, everybody, what is going on? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well on this Friday. We have made it to the end of the week, and we've got more prediction videos to get to here. We're moving on to the next position group on the defense, and this is going to be all about the edge rushers. And this is going to be one of the most interesting position groups for the Seahawks this year because this is a position group that the Seahawks, based on what happened last season, probably could have upgraded, and they kind of didn't. They did do one thing of note, but whether or not it's a significant upgrade is not it's not entirely clear. And overall, I do think that we're looking at a pretty similar base of talent and ability as we did last year, if not a little bit less. This video is sponsored by PrizePicks. If the Seahawks do not have the season we want them to have this year, if they end up disappointing, if they end up not having a very good season, whatever that might look like, and it's not because of massive, ridiculous injuries that are just impossible to overcome, I imagine this will probably be the reason why. They didn't do enough at the edge rusher spot to improve from what they had in 2025, because what they had in 2025 was adequate. It was not stellar. And you look at what they have, it's pretty darn similar to last year. They swapped out Boye Mafe for Dante Fowler, which saved money, right? Saved a lot of money. And I do think Fowler is probably a slightly better player, but then you've got Demarcus Lawrence a year older, Uchenna Nwosu a year older, Derick Hall hopefully can come into his own. But you're hoping for a lot of stuff that may or may not happen. This could be the Achilles heel to me, maybe even more than running back. I don't think the lack of running back talent on this team is going to be something that breaks them, but I could absolutely see edge rusher being a position that breaks them. All right, so with that being said, though, these are the guys that we currently have going forward. So let's start with Uchenna Nwosu. Now, Uchenna Nwosu's a little bit of a difficult one, right? Because he's not that old, but it feels like his body is older than his actual age. The reason why I say that is just because he's had so many injuries over the last few years that there's a sense that he doesn't have a lot left in the tank, even though he should based on age. So with that in mind, what are we going to get out of him? This one I'm a little bit bearish on. I will admit that. Obviously, he's going to play. He's going to get snaps. So 29 tackles. I don't think he'll be a huge presence on this defense, but he's going to play enough to get 29 tackles. I went with 6 tackles for loss. Again, this defense is not really one that prioritizes getting a lot of tackles for loss. It's mostly tackles at or around the line of scrimmage. Sacks, 5. And pressures, I went with 20, which, look, if you look at last season, the first half of the year, he did a lot. Nwosu looked really good in the first half of the season. Second half of the season, very little impact. And did he get hurt and was he playing through it? Did he get tired? Did his body just kind of give out? Was that first half of the season last year like the last gasp of his career? It's hard to know. But this is one where I kind of see things going not so great direction. If you like sports, then the best way to make them even better and more exciting is using the PrizePicks app, where it always feels good to be right. PrizePicks makes daily fantasy simple. Just pick more or less on your favorite players and build lineups with a few taps. Whatever sport you're into, and obviously we are now firmly into the NFL offseason, so we're all about baseball. We got some basketball, we got some hockey, whatever it is you like. PrizePicks gives you a fun way to stay locked in while you're watching. Definitely make sure to use the promo code HMA. PrizePicks is hooking up users with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. If you use that promo code, that is HMA. I've had a great time on PrizePicks so far, so definitely get on over to it, check it out, and make sure to get your lineups. And don't forget about Team Picks, where you can pick winners, spreads, and totals on any major game. So download the app now, use HMA, and get on over to Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And remember, always gamble responsibly. I feel like that he'll continue to grind out some production just because he's going to get to play and he's not a completely worthless player. But I also get the sense that last year, the first half of the year, that was kind of the last gasp of him as a really good player. And now he's going to be a guy who is competent, capable, but isn't going to make a lot of big plays and isn't going to be a big impact guy. Okay, so that's Nwosu. Now we have D-Law. D-Law, great season for us last year, but 34 years old now. A lot of miles, a lot of play in this league. Hard for me to believe he's going to be as good as he was last year. I think he will continue to be really good as a run defender. But when it comes to getting after the quarterback, there is going to be some slippage here. Although hopefully not a lot. I mean, we do need him. We do need him to be close to what he was last year. So I went with 47 tackles. That seems to be an area that he does very well in because of how involved he is against the run. Went with 9 tackles for loss. Again, kind of his forte, but I went with 6 sacks, which is about what he had last year. So in terms of the box score stats, I think he'll be about what he was last season, pretty close. Maybe he'll miss a couple of games to preserve him for the end of the year. That might be something that we do here. And 31 pressures, which would still be, I mean, I'd happily take that, but it's not quite as good as last year. I think that some regression is just common sense to expect. And this team should not be going into the 2026 expecting D-Law to be a Pro Bowler, a Pro Bowl caliber player again. That's not good planning. So hopefully somebody else can step up to mitigate the difference. Okay, Dante Fowler Jr., this is the interesting one because he's new, replacing Boye Mafe, but I think Fowler's still good. I think he's a good fit for this defense. I think he has a lot of good stuff to offer this team. So I'm not saying that he'll be a big-time statistical contributor, but I think that we will be getting something a little bit better than what we had last year with Mafe. Not going to go crazy with it, 22 tackles. Probably a guy who is more impacting the play rather than making the play or setting up the play for other people. 6 tackles for loss, and I went with 5 sacks. You look at what he did last year on a really bad defense, on a team that almost never played with a lead, and you think about what he could do on a defense where he's constantly playing from ahead. I think that a decent amount of pass rush production can be expected, so I went with 24 pressures. Again, it's not going to be incredibly high. It's not going to be some really high sack to pressure ratio, but it's going to be perfectly respectable, and we're going to get what we need out of him ultimately. And I think we'll end up coming out of this season feeling like we made a really good call going from Mafe to Fowler. So it's going to be a successful year. It's going to be better than the year he had last year, but we're going to be getting a similar quality of play, just better circumstances. Okay, Derick Hall. Derick Hall here. This is kind of the guy that we're hoping is a big breakout guy for 2026 because that's kind of the only way out of the, I would call it kind of the mediocrity we seem to be headed towards right now. Like you look at these edge rushers, it should be okay, but I don't know if it's going to be anything special. So Derick Hall, I got 35 tackles here, couple tackles a game. He's not going to play a ton, so he's not going to put up monster stats, but we'll see some improvement. I went with 8 tackles for loss, so continuing to contribute in that area, and I went with 6 sacks. So I don't think he's going to break out into some kind of like double-digit sack star this year, although I don't think it's impossible. I think that last year did kind of show that there is a little bit of a ceiling here in terms of him as a pass rusher, but it did show that he can be a versatile all-around edge, and that's probably more important in this defense. Went with 26 pressures, so nothing over the top insane here. I do think this team is going to lean on Demarcus Lawrence a little bit more than they might be comfortable with, and I do think we'll come out of this year feeling like, hey, Derick Hall, good player, deserved the contract he got. We got him at a good rate, but we're not going to come out of it feeling like he's going to be some Will Anderson type. If you give him another year or two, we're going to come out of it feeling like he is a good player. And this is where things could potentially get hairy, right? Because this is not great. This is not what you would ideally like on an elite defense. Generally speaking, if you're going to have an elite defense, you need to be a little bit more stacked up at the edge position. Now, this team has proven that they can find different ways to be elite, but you've got your top 4 guys here. This is most of your edge snaps, 22 sacks, and about 100 pressures. Like that can work, but they're going to be. I mean, the Rams have a guy who might get 22 sacks by himself this year, for all we know. I mean, he did it last year. Connor O'Toole, just kind of threw him in there as well. I think he'll play in a couple of games, 2 tackles, nothing else to really talk about. Hopefully, just garbage time. And that gets your totals to 135 tackles, 29 for loss, 22 sacks, and 101 pressures. So hopefully it's enough to get it done. But I don't think we're going to get anything stellar out of here. I don't think you're going to see any all pros or pro bowlers. I mean, maybe D-Law, right? But that'll mostly be because of what he does against the run. And again, we've proven that we can win without having great play here, but the flip side of that is you better be ready to not necessarily get great play from here. It's going to be more like steady Eddie rather than making big splash plays. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think. That is what I got for the edge rushers, being pretty modest here. I just think this is going to be the area of the team that we have to work a little bit to make up for, because we just didn't do that much to improve from last year. All right, more videos coming soon. Go Hawks.